Hey guys, so welcome back to another video. So today we are continuing the adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Chapter 3, A Case of Identity, Part 3. So this part 3 today. So let's start with the third part. Last time we stopped till here, so let's continue. Sherlock chuckled while softly clapping his hands. My dear Watson, you have wonderfully and quite vividly described Miss Mary Sutherland. I am quite impressed by your eye for color. You managed to miss every detail that held importance, but you have found the method. Your eyes just need a little bit training. Never focus on general details, my dear Watson. You should concentrate on finer details. My first glance, he continued, is towards a woman's hands. She well-defined double lines on both her wrists, where a typewriter presses on a table. Hence I deduce she did a lot of typewriting. She had marks on her nose that suggested she wore glasses, and hence her eyesight was weak, and her boots, which you did not observe, were different from each other. She hadn't buttoned them properly, either, which gave me the impression that she had come in a hurry. I was impressed and asked him what else he had noticed. He pointed out she had written a note before leaving the house. She had a hole in her glove's forefinger, and there was an ink stain, not only on the glove but also the finger. This indicated that she has written a note recently, or the stain would have not been visible on her finger. All of this, though quite amusing, is rather elementary. My dear Watson, Sherlock, smiling and rocking in his chair while blowing a cloud of smoke. Could you read me the description of our missing man, Mr. Hosmer Angel? Sherlock asked me. I looked at the papers of our client that left on the table, and found the newspaper in which she has advertised for her lover. I held a tiny paper towards the light. Missing. It said in bold letters. On the morning of the 14th, a gentleman named Hosmer Angel went missing. About 5 feet 7 inches in height, strongly built, sallow complexion, black hair, a little bald patch in the center, blushy backside, whiskers and moustache, tiny glasses, and slight weakness in speaking. Was last seen dressed in a black frock coat, black waistcoat, gold Albert chain, and grey Harris tweed trousers with elastic-sided black boots. Was last seen near St. Saviour's Church. Is known to have been employed a cashier company on Leadenhall Street. That will do, Holmes said. As for the letters, nothing that could point us in the direction of our missing man, nor do they give any insight into the man's character. Absolutely no clue. One bizarre thing is something even you must have noticed, my friend, said while glancing at me. I pointed out that the letters were all typewritten. My friend agreed, but added even the signature on the letter was typewritten, and the address was only given as Leadenhall Street, which both my partner and found quite vague. Perhaps it was done so that he could deny writing those letters, I theorized. No, that was not the reason to solve the case. I write 2 letters. One letter will go to a firm in the city, and the other letter will go to Miss Mary Sutherland's stepfather, Mr. Windybank, asking him if he would be kind enough to grace us with his presence at 6 p.m. tomorrow evening. Until we receive the responses to those letters, Dr. Watson, we can do nothing else about this case, Sherlock said with an air of finality. I had in my adventures with Sherlock Holmes became a believer in his intellect and his powers of reasoning, and hence I bid him farewell and left home. The next day was a busy one. I was engaged in a professional case of huge importance. I spent the majority of my day tending to my patient. It was until little before 6 p.m. that I found myself free. I hired a carriage and started for Baker Street, a little afraid that I might be late for the grand solving of the mystery. However, when I reached, Sherlock was half asleep in his chair. "Have you solved it?" I asked Sherlock. "Oh, there was never any mystery to it. As I said yesterday, I only need to confirm some things. The only thing that was frustrating me is that there is no law in this world that can punish the scoundrel for what he has done," Sherlock said with a hint of anger. I was about to ask him who Mr. Hosmer Angel was and what his reason was for hurting poor Miss Mary Sutherland, when we heard heavy footsteps in the passage. After a few seconds, a knock on the door. "That must be James Windybank, Mr. Mary Sutherland's stepfather," Sherlock said. "He sent me a letter saying he would meet us today at 6 p.m. Sherlock invited Mr. Windybank into the apartment. He was a sturdy, middle-sized man. He looked to be his early 30s, clean-shaven and sallow-skinned. He looked at us in a questioning manner with piercing grey eyes. "Good evening, Mr. James Windybank. It's a pleasure to meet you. I believe it was you who wrote the letter on the typewriter in which you made the appointment with me for 6 p.m. today," Sherlock asked him as he handed the man the letter. "Yes, I'm afraid I am a tad bit late. I apologize for the delay, but as you know, I do not have my own business, and I need to take a leave from my employer. I'm sorry that Miss Mary Sutherland has bothered you with her little matter, because I don't think that personal matters like this should become known to the public. She came here against the wishes of her mother and myself, but you must have seen she is quite impulsive, and it is quite hard to control her when she has made up her mind about something. Besides, I think this is a waste of money, for how could you possibly find Mr. Hosmer Angels?" Mr. Windybank said. "On the contrary, my friend, I have every reason to believe that I have indeed become successful in the task Mr. Mary Sutherland had given me," Sherlock said with a sly smile. Mr. Windybank sat upright. All colour seemed to leave his face for a second. He looked like a ghost. Then he immediately smiled and said he was quite glad about that. Sherlock smiled back and told him he found it quite curious that even though typewriters are machines, they too have individuality about them. Every typewriter has a unique tell, depending upon the wear and usage. Of the letters. So yeah, that's it for part 3 of chapter 3, A Case of Identity. I will see you in the next part of the adventures of Sherlock Holmes. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.